It is time for my absolute favorite part of building a knife. Hand sanding. Something not everybody does. Leaving grind marks can be kind of cool looking sometimes, but if you want a finish that looks like it's handmade, I always recommend a hand sanded finish. Plus this is Damascus, so you kind of need to. Anyway, I'm going to show you the tools that I use. These are my sanding sticks. These ideas came from Nick Wheeler. He's amazing at pretty much everything he does, so why not take a trick from his book? Anyway, they're not as pretty as his. Just because I don't spend a ton of time trying to make my tools really pretty. So I have these. I have one with G10 on it, so I get a nice flat finish. And this I'll use with like my 220. If you want to keep a hard line, you don't really want any soft materials for the hard line to wash out. I'm not a big fan of the hard lines, but every now and again I'll keep them. This one I won't use on this, but it's got a rounded area. I use this when I do like bigger fullers and stuff like that. And then I have this smaller sanding stick with some rubber on it. I can't remember what the diameter of the rubber is. It's pretty stiff, but it gives some flex. So for my jig, or whatever you want to call it, I just use a piece of 2x4. There's a lot of people selling the really nice ones and all that, but I like the 2x4 because I like my edge to hang off just a hair. So when I'm hand sanding, the wood doesn't get in the way. And with a 2x4, I can just transfer the profile of the edge and then just sand away the 2x4 so it matches the edge and it just doesn't get in the way. Anyway, this one's pretty close to where I need it anyway. And then when I've got knives that the handle's already on, I can take and just cut a notch out here, hang the handle over the edge, clamp it down, and then I can sand the steel. I'm going to start with 220, then go to 400, and then end with 600. The general rule for the sandpaper grit progression is you'll want to use basically double the number of what you used before that. I usually try to go down a little bit. So when I do 220, I'm not going to use 440. I use 400. After 400, I usually go to 600 instead of 800. When I'm doing handles, I'll go 400, 600, 1,000, and then 1,500. And sometimes I'll go up to 2,500. Just really depends. And then I have a video on this little sandpaper cutting jig I made. It's really handy for doing this stuff, for cutting the sandpaper. Because you basically slide it into there, butt it up to the stop, press this down, and then rip it. And then you've got 1/5 of a strip, which is a little over, it's like 2.2 inches, which fits my sanding sticks really well. This is the stuff I use, so we'll go over and start sanding. I'll show you how I do it. All this is going to take place over at the vise. So what I'll do is I just slap this in the vise, crank it down. I'll hang it off the edge here, take my little vise grip thing here and just clamp it down to the wood like that. And all of a sudden, I've got my piece clamped in there. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my sanding stick with the flat, hard surface and put my 220 on there. All I do is I just overlap this just a little bit, fold it around the front, fold the back around, and then just hold it like this. And then that stays on there really well. I personally like to use Simple Green for my lubricant. I don't think you have to use a lubricant, but I prefer it. So I'll just spray it on there and then find my angle and then just start scrubbing away. What I normally do is I'll hold this at the same angle as my plunge line so I can get all the way up where I need to. And then you can feel when your sandpaper starts to dull. I move around on the paper and you can feel it 'cause it's just not cutting as well anymore. Sandpaper's cheap, so don't make it harder on yourself. Just use a section until it feels like it's not cutting, and then just move along. So all I do is I just take this back crease that I made, move it to the front, and then fold it over on the back. And then I'll wipe this just to check where I still have to get to, if I have to change pressure or what. So I'll wipe it, make note of where I need to be, just spray it again, start scrubbing. And I'm putting some pretty heavy pressure on this. I don't think you have to, but just gonna take you longer. One thing you wanna watch out for is where you're placing your fingers on this. When I hold it, I keep my fingers well above the surface here. That way, if you grip it like this, your fingers run the risk of dragging across this edge, and it's not sharpened, but it's still sharp enough to cut the crap out of you. So watch out for that. All right, I'll pull this off, show you the progress. So I'm not entirely sure if you can see that, but you can see that I've still got some lines back here and some lines on the front here that I need to get out, and then a couple on the edge right here. So the better you are at grinding on the belt grinder, the easier this is going to be. So obviously right here I was a little high in the middle, so I must have turned a little bit toward the edge and then to the top of the bevel up here, because I still have some lines that are hard to get out. So basically I've got to flatten this middle out a little more. If it's bad, just head back over to the grinder and get it out. But this isn't too bad. Both sides done with 220. And then what I'll do is I'll get this in better light and make sure I got all the scratches out. But what I'll do now is I will switch to 400 and then use my rubber sanding stick. A couple different ways to do this. You can, since on the 220 we went straight, if you want to on the 400 you can go at an angle from what your other sand mark, your 220 marks are. That way you'll know when all the 220 marks are out and you have 400 left. I personally will just go continue straight up and down. And usually I just use a certain amount of sandpaper and it almost always gets them all out. But if you want to be extra sure that you're getting all the previous paper marks out, you'll want to go opposite, or not opposite, but just at an angle of what your previous grit marks are. I personally feel comfortable just going the same way and just doing a certain amount with the 400. And then you can usually tell also, I mean, you'll get a certain look to it, a certain finish. And when you etch it in the ferric, it's going to look really good. So I'm going to go through the 400 on both sides. 400 is done. I've got the 600 on here. Kind of the same thing. Just I have a certain amount of paper that I usually go through, and then I'll check it, and it usually has the sheen that I'm after. If not, I'll just I'll do it more until I get the look I'm after. Again, if you want to go opposite of your last grit, you can do that. Okay, once you get to what you're after, dry it off, come to the edge of your paper, and then just do some straight pulls. That way you get rid of all the J hooks from the sandpaper. That'll make it look like a satin finish, basically. It doesn't take too much to do this. You really don't have to press too hard. I know that what you're supposed to do is go up a grit, so I would do 800 again, and then come back with the 600 and put the straight pulls into it. It gives a better looking satin finish, but this will look just fine. There's what the 600 looks like with the straight pulls, and you can actually, maybe not on camera, but you can actually see the Damascus in it. It looks good. So now I just need to do the other side, and then one more step and the hand sanding's done. Last step is the parts we didn't get to on the hand sanding bar over there. The edge and then the choil area right here. So all I'll do is I'll just run this on the grinder up to 400 here, and then I'll put my small wheel on and catch this, and then after that we'll be done. All done. That's hand sanded up to 600 grit. Got the choil, got the spine, rounded the spine just a little bit. The next thing I need to do is I need to put my maker's mark on here, and I'll electro etch that. And then the exciting part, the etch to pull out the Damascus pattern. Feel free to ask any questions. If I have the answer, I'll answer. If not, I probably know somebody who does.